When a child refuses to sleep alone, it can look like stalling, manipulation, or defiance. Another drink, one more story, check under the bed, leave the hallway light on, stay until I fall asleep. And just when you think they are finally settled, Mom, Dad. For an exhausted parent, this can feel like a nightly battle. But bedtime resistance is common in young children, and research suggests that several different processes can be happening at the same time. Separation, fear, emotional arousal, habits around falling asleep, and normal development can all play a role. And understanding that changes how the behavior looks. Because your child may not simply be thinking, I don't want to sleep. They may be experiencing something closer to, I don't want this connection to end. Think about what bedtime actually asks a young child to do. During the day, there is noise, light, movement, conversation, play, parents moving through the house. Then, bedtime arrives. The room becomes darker, the stimulation disappears, and eventually, the parent leaves. For some children, that transition is easy. For others, separation itself creates enough worry or emotional arousal to make relaxing difficult. Separation anxiety is a normal part of early development, particularly during infancy and toddlerhood. Research examining attachment and preschool sleep suggests that concerns around bedtime separation can be connected with difficulty settling, although the relationship between attachment and sleep is complicated and should not be reduced to one simple cause. In other words, a child who calls you back may not be making a calculated decision to control bedtime. Sometimes they are seeking reassurance because separation genuinely feels difficult. Then another developmental change enters the picture: imagination. During the preschool years, children's ability to imagine becomes extraordinarily powerful. The cardboard box becomes a spaceship. The blanket becomes a castle. And unfortunately, the shadow beside the wardrobe can become a monster. Researchers studying children between 4 and 6 have found meaningful links between nighttime fears and children's developing ability to distinguish fantasy from reality. That helps explain something parents often find confusing. You can tell your child, there is nothing under the bed, and your child may completely understand what you are saying, but understanding something logically does not always switch off fear immediately. Adults experience this too. You can know that turbulence is normal while your body still reacts on an airplane. Children have an even less mature ability to regulate those feelings. So when a preschooler says, "Don't leave, I'm scared," their fear may feel completely real even when the danger is imaginary. But fear and separation are only part of the story. There is also learning. Imagine that every night your child falls asleep while you are lying beside them. Your voice is there, your hand is there, your body is beside the bed. Night after night, those conditions become part of the familiar process of falling asleep. That does not mean you have spoiled your child, and it does not mean the child is manipulating you. It simply means the brain learns from repetition. Pediatric sleep researchers describe sleep onset associations, in which particular conditions become connected with falling asleep. Bedtime resistance and difficulty settling can become more persistent when a child strongly expects a particular condition, such as parental presence, to be there. So, imagine that your child briefly wakes later. The room is the same, the bed is the same, but the parent who was there when sleep began is gone. For some children, that difference is enough to trigger, "Mom, Dad, come back." Again, not necessarily because something is wrong. The child has simply noticed that the conditions associated with falling asleep have changed. Anxiety can make this pattern even stronger. Research involving school-aged children has found that co-sleeping is considerably more common among children with anxiety, and greater anxiety severity has been associated with more co-sleeping. Researchers have also found associations between co-sleeping and differences in sleep timing and sleep variability. Importantly, these findings show an association, not proof that one causes the other. Similar research in preschoolers has found that reactive bed sharing can occur alongside sleep disturbances and anxiety, while also emphasizing that researchers cannot simply say whether bed sharing caused the anxiety or the anxiety led to the bed sharing. That distinction matters because families are different, cultures are different, children are different, and sleeping arrangements themselves are not a psychological diagnosis. The important question is usually, is this arrangement working for this child and family, or is fear controlling what happens every night? You may also hear a much simpler explanation online. Your child panics because separation causes a cortisol spike. That story sounds scientific, but the evidence is more complicated. Cortisol is involved in the body's stress system, and researchers have studied relationships between infant sleep, caregiver responsiveness, separation, and physiological stress. But we cannot say that every child refusing to sleep alone is experiencing a specific cortisol surge every time a parent walks away. Human sleep and emotional regulation are far more complex than one hormone. A more accurate way to think about it is this. For some children, separation or fear increases arousal, and sleep requires almost the opposite. The body needs permission to settle. Attention needs to disengage. The child needs to feel secure enough to stop monitoring what is happening around them. That is one reason bedtime can become difficult even when a child is obviously tired. So what can parents actually do? The goal does not have to be make your child stop needing you. A better goal is help your child gradually feel safe enough to need less help falling asleep. And those are very different messages. Start before the moment of separation. A predictable bedtime routine can make the transition easier because the child knows what comes next. Bath, pajamas, brush teeth, story, hug, lights out. Research on behavioral approaches to children's bedtime problems has found that consistent bedtime routines and behavioral strategies can improve bedtime resistance and night waking. A major American Academy of Sleep Medicine review examined dozens of studies and concluded that behavioral approaches can produce meaningful, lasting improvements for many families. But consistent does not have to be cold. A parent can be warm and predictable. You might say, "I know you want me to stay. You are safe. It is bedtime now. I'll check on you again soon." The emotional message is, "I believe you can handle this," not "Stop being ridiculous." For a child who currently needs a parent beside the bed, some families may find gradual change easier than suddenly removing all parental presence. For example, a parent might move from lying beside the child to sitting beside the bed, then sitting slightly farther away, and eventually leaving after the routine. There is no single sleep method that every family must use. Behavioral sleep research includes several approaches, and family circumstances, child temperament, age, culture, and parental preferences matter. The larger principle is consistency. When tonight's boundary is completely different from last night's boundary, the child has difficulty learning what bedtime actually predicts. And deal with fears when the child is calm whenever possible, not only at 10:47 at night. During the day, ask, "What feels scary about your room?" Let the child explain. Sometimes the answer surprises parents. Maybe it is a shadow from the curtains, a noise from the heating system, a frightening video they saw, a fear that something might happen to a parent, or simply the feeling of being alone. When adults understand the actual fear, they can respond to the real problem instead of repeatedly saying, "There's nothing to be scared of." There is also an important difference between reassuring fear and accidentally organizing the entire night around fear. A child can hear, "I believe that feels scary," without hearing, "You cannot cope unless I remain here all night." That balance takes practice. Connection and confidence can exist together. You can comfort your child while still communicating, "Your room is safe, you can learn this, and I believe you can do difficult things." So, When is refusing to sleep alone simply part of development? Occasional clinginess around bedtime, wanting extra reassurance after illness, travel, a move, a new sibling, or another big change. Preschool nighttime fears, temporary increases in parental checking. These can happen without meaning that a child has an anxiety disorder or sleep disorder. One behavior by itself does not diagnose anything. But it is worth discussing sleep with a pediatrician or qualified professional when the problem is severe, persistent, dramatically disrupting family life, or accompanied by significant daytime anxiety or impairment. Also seek medical advice when sleep problems include symptoms such as frequent loud snoring, pauses or difficulty breathing during sleep, or other concerning physical symptoms. Pediatric sleep assessment considers both behavioral and medical causes. And remember, a child struggling with sleep is not automatically a badly behaved child. A parent responding at night is not automatically creating dependency. And needing help learning to sleep independently does not mean something is wrong with your child's attachment. Sleep develops inside a relationship between biology, emotion, learning, environment, and family routines. Sometimes the child who whispers, "Please don't leave," is not asking you to surrender every boundary. They may be asking for enough safety, predictability, and practice to eventually believe, "I can do this, even when you're not sitting beside me." And that is a very different way to understand bedtime.